the program. Just 5 minutes. I would like to request all the participants to kindly wait for 5 minutes, please. Professor Ruslan is trying to enter the program. He has little technical, he has a problem, technical problem. Oh, already he is here. Okay. Prof. Ruslan, I would like to request you to give a welcome speech and start the program, please.
I think excellencies and distinguished speakers, you're experts on the subject. But I think the fact remains there. Today, what we are seeing is we are looking at a different world. There is, in my view anyway, you are discussing in an environment of what I consider world turmoil. There's a lot of tension, and it's somehow or other I feel there is also we have developed a culture of the Cold War, and I think there are new players in the global landscape, and I think there are some players who are nervous. So I think this is the time that the Taliban got back. And I think the most important thing for us to remember, whether we are for or against the Taliban, they are the de facto government. They are in control of the situation. Whether they are, maybe we are seeing from the various news report or whether on social media or the international media, all kinds of reactions in terms, oh, this is Taliban. They are going to be extreme. They are going to exclude women. They are going to deny, in some cases. So we must be able to, I'm sure you will discuss this. So I think I welcome the organization or the arrangement for this discussion, because not many, I think, think tank or groups have want to discuss this subject. They think it is too early. But this Muslim World Research Center, Malaysia, Australia, and with the cooperation of Islamabad Policy Institute, Pakistan, and our University of Malaya, they've decided maybe it is an opportune moment for us to analyze and discuss and get our views. As you know, that we are witnessing a very rapidly evolving situation, and Taliban swiftly captured terrorists in Afghanistan in the final days of US pull-out. And I think this the Taliban entry is also not so sudden if we look at the background. So, the US have discussed, under Trump, they have discussed it, Qatar has played a role. So, whatever it is, I sometimes wonder, this is since I am only making an opening remark, we get overexcited, over-anxious when there is a Muslim government or Muslim group come into power. But we have never actually discussed. In Israel, we have got the Orthodox Jews party, the most extreme party, part of the Israeli coalition. And nobody discussed about it. The West was totally quiet. So I think it is a very, so I hope that you will be able to look at it and see how. Can you listen, hear what I'm saying? Is it the voice okay? Huh? Okay. I think I just want to read what you already know. I think the event on the ground is happening defied all previous assessment and prediction. We were expecting there will be a killing spree. What is a bloodshed in October? And the prospect of civil war, there are skirmishes here and there are differences. That is normal for any change of government. So it seems to have been averted. But I think we cannot deny the fact that the situation remains fragile. So you're discussing a very fluid, very fragile situation that all of us are interested to know your assessments, how you look at it. And I think the whole international community, of course, because this government Taliban, I mean, even in Malaysia, recently I was reading one of the writers, because there was one of the political parties say that they are going to introduce Act 355 or something. So the comment, oh, we are going to see the Talibanization of Malaysia. Even Malaysia has been dragged into this, terminology. So I think anything that has to do with Muslims ruling or people, there is always that reaction. So we have to learn to live with that reaction. But our most important, I think, function is that we must be able to communicate and convey our message about ourselves. So I think this is what you're going to. I think the international reaction on the announcement is, you see, very US seem to say that this is not an inclusive government. What is inclusive and what is exclusive is a question of definition. It's a question how you have set parameters. So we are seeing that I think it is a caretaker cabinet. I think give them a chance. And I like the position of Pakistan. Pakistan, I think, has done very well, because it is the party that knows the situation in Afghanistan better than anyone else. And I think they have got very good understanding of the whole situation. They say, let us engage, give them a chance. But I think you must remember, but for the Northern Alliance, it's a very painful experience. They've gone through a very painful experience. But I think I would like to take the position that Pakistan has done, calling everybody, and let us discuss and see how. You must remember that they need reconciliation, they need redevelopment, and if it is the intention of Western institutions to stop all funds from coming, then you are going to create more problem and difficulty. I think so. I hope that the Taliban, I would like to judge United Nations and the permanent 5 members in all facing the international crisis, if not their words or their resolutions or their statements. I like to see their actions. What action have they done? I think Middle East is a very good example of it. I think US would say that they want to actions of the Taliban, not the words. I think let us see. And the UE spokesperson, he does not look like the inclusive representative. I think all these are. Russia also say they are watching closely. China said welcome the end of 3 weeks of anarchy. I think China has given a very positive statement of the whole situation. So you have got an opportunity, all of you, with your own expertise and knowledge. And I think Turkey say that they will not be hasty in recognizing the Taliban government. I think let us put this way. Let us not talk about recognizing Taliban. Let us talk about recognizing the de facto government of Afghanistan, the Emirate of Afghanistan. If you start straight away to place ideology. So I think, of course, Iran has criticized the government, saying it ignored the need for an inclusive government. So all these are very interesting. And Qatar, I think, as being has said that de facto rulers, we cannot question that. If there is a choice of the people, that's what Afghan people want. So we must take a very pragmatic view of it, and let us see, let us try to assist them. I would take that position. I think let us be guided by the countries that know the subject very well. And I think the country that know the subject very well, Pakistan, I hope Pakistan will take the lead role in bringing some of the OIC members to help Afghanistan. And I think in bringing the neighbors in Central Asia, and I think with collaboration from China, and I think we do not want it to be exclusive. We want to include the West. The West must come with open arms. Don't look at what they have spent look at what destruction has been done to that country, and that country has to be read. So we must, I think, take the view of what Pakistan has said. Let us undertake outreach efforts and see how. And in this, I think, congratulations for the Sharaf, who always very hard, for Rose Clark, and everyone who involved, who have taken great pains to organize under very difficult circumstances this webinar, this discussion. I'm sure the discussion will not only will be very, very constructive, analytical, and it will give a lot of insights into what we need to understand and what we need to do. So I wish you all of you a very fruitful discussion, a very constructive outcome, and let us together work towards something that can help us to understand better what the Afghanistan people want. At the end of it, the bottom line is, no matter what the international community want, we must respect what the people want. So with that, thank you very much for asking me to say a few words, and I hope I haven't taken more than time than I should. So thank you, Professor Emeritus Datuk Sri Syed Arabi, for your kind introduction of me. I think next time the introduction about me just should be one line. The rest of it should be left out. You know, I think I'm just a fakir trying to learn, and this is my rule now. A fakir who tries to learn and understand what is happening in of things around me, beyond me, above, and all others, in order for us to be able to live in a better world where everyone can enjoy happiness and development. So terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Assalam. Thank you so much, Tansi. You have been a very humble man. You have introduced the subject very, very well. We're looking at not the Taliban per se, but the de facto government in control of Afghanistan now. Tansi has highlighted the position in Afghanistan. But of course, we have to see Afghanistan now with a bigger context. The relationship of the country with its neighbors, with Pakistan, Iran, Russia, China, with Turkey, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and not only with immediate neighbors, you have also to see the implications beyond that with superpowers. What does US now think, or what they would do after withdrawing from Afghanistan? Are they going to be, in the case of Vietnam, go back to help, or are they going to withdraw because of other urgent locations that they have to think about? These are questions that we can raise, and I think Afghanistan is a very important strategic country to discuss, not only in terms of politics, in terms of economics, or in terms of religion that we are now touching after. So we have quite ample time. Tansi has taken is gone beyond time allocated. Then we have Chandra was not able to come. But we have Mr. Aziz Ahmad Chaudhry, who is speaking from Pakistan. Now we are 3:30, they are 12:30. So Aziz Ahmad Chaudhry served as a member of the Foreign Service of Pakistan for 37 years, rising to the rank of Foreign Secretary of Pakistan from 2013 to March 2017. Mr. Aziz Chaudhry's last diplomatic assignment was Ambassador of Pakistan to the United States of America. He also served as Ambassador of Pakistan to the Netherlands.
We're not listening. Stop.
To enlighten us all, I finally invite Ambassador Aziz Ahmad.
Thank you.
Oh, it's yours.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by congratulating Muslim World Research Center in Malaysia, as well as University of Malaysia and the OIC study group based in Malaysia. And I also see Islamabad Policy Research Institute. It's not my institute, but it is certainly one of the institutes in Pakistan. I would also like to express that I feel honored in the presence of speaking. Dr. Aizan Ali should mute, if you can. Yeah, thank you. I feel honored that I am speaking in the presence of Sayyid Hamid Al-Bar, a renowned personality. He is being very modest to say that only speak one sentence about me, but I think he deserves to be recognized for his contributions. Thank you also to Sayyid Arabi Adid for moderating this session. And I'm really happy to be speaking on a subject which is of special and critical importance to my country, Pakistan, because we are the neighbors of Pakistan. And Pakistan has suffered the most from the instability of Afghanistan in the last 4 decades, ever since Soviet forces came into the country. Now, we don't have to go into history. Let me make 4 essential points. First is the role that the United States played or could play in future. We know that there had been consistent appeal to United States for a responsible withdrawal from Afghanistan, so that there was no chaos. But we saw in the end there was a hasty withdrawal and there was a sudden collapse of Ashraf Ghani government as well as Afghan National Army. Now that enabled the Taliban to take over the country in just 11 days. We had been constantly pressing from Pakistan to the United States in the last 20 years that there will be no military solution. There should be no military solution. But the United States kept pursuing military solution and gave peace process a chance only towards the very, very end. And as a result, because they were looking for a military solution, they could not get it, and somebody else got it. And another reason why a political solution could not succeed was because of Ashraf Ghani government, which kept distracting and delaying the process of intra-Afghan talks. The deal of the United States and Taliban of February 2020 called for intra-Afghan talks, but unfortunately, the delaying tactics, did not allow any progress to be made until it was time for the US troops to leave. So now, what should the US and the West do now? I think they need to stay engaged with Taliban. They cannot abandon their responsibility. They were here for a long time.
they came to fix Al-Qaeda. They fixed it. But then they stayed on to create a new Afghan nation in the image of Western liberal democracy. That did not happen because every country has its own traditions. So I think United States needs to stay engaged, because if they continue non-cooperation, like they have frozen the funds for Afghanistan and other negative elements, then my worry is that Afghanistan will go back into a civil war. Then there will be no central authority. Then the terrorist entities will once again create their space in Afghanistan. So in a way, the United States will push the country back to pre-2001 era, when the Afghanistan of that year was not governed and properly, and there were ungovernable spaces. So United States and the West have a responsibility not to try to coerce this government. I'm not speaking for this government. Of course, it is for the Afghans to decide which government they should have. But I think the people of Afghanistan should not be pushed against the wall, and the United States has a responsibility, because it will suffer if the law and order breaks down in Afghanistan again, and we get the same terrorist entities like Al-Qaeda and Daesh and ETIM and IMU and TTP and all of them taking space in Afghanistan, taking roots in Afghanistan again. So this is my first point. My second point is that the Afghans now have a responsibility. At the end of the day, it is an Afghan problem, and their Afghan leaders need to know that it has to be ultimately their responsibility to give peace a chance. Ashraf Ghani did not want to talk to the Taliban, fine. But now the Taliban should talk to others. And that is the rationale behind the demand, and not demand, suggestion, advice to the Taliban government, that it should be an inclusive government. Now, there are some people who say, how can you have inclusive government? Can Democrats and Republicans make one government? Can PTI and PMLN in Pakistan make one government, and so on? But I say that this is a wrong analogy. Afghanistan is not being recreated in the image of a Western liberal democracy. But the Taliban need to carry people along. And as we were speaking, when your session started, I was pleased to see 2 or 3 tweets that the Taliban have included in the interim government. One Deputy Minister of Health, Muhammad Hassan Ghayasi, who is from Hazara ethnic tribe. They've also included Mullah Muhammad Ibrahim Sadr as Deputy Minister for Interior for Security. They've also included Sardar Ibrahim, Mullah Abdul Qayyum Zakir, who is known to be a pro-Iran person, and so on. So I think the message with the Taliban is sinking, that they need to carry everybody along. They need to accommodate everybody. And I think there is a very strong logic behind this. Because if the Taliban do not do that, then the fighting will erupt in different parts of Afghanistan again. That could descend Afghanistan into another civil war, which is not good for Afghanistan, not good for the region, the neighbors of Afghanistan, and not good for the Muslim world. And therefore, it is important that the Taliban honor their commitment of carrying others along. There are some other commitments also which the Taliban should carry. They have announced amnesty for everybody. Good. I think saying peace is an Islamic tradition. Assalamu alaikum is peace be upon you. So this is good. They have also announced that they will not allow Afghan soil to be used for terrorism against any other country. Excellent. They should practically show this, and it should not be only commitment to the United States for ISIS. It should be commitment to every neighbor, every country, that Afghan soil will not be used. And I think the United Nations and United States and Europe and Pakistan and all neighbors will need to help to fulfill this commitment of not allowing Afghan soil to be used. They've also given a commitment that we will respect human rights, especially human rights. But we see that this needs to be implemented in greater, of course, remaining within the cultural traditions of Afghanistan. But women have a role, and women have to be respected because Islam respects the women. And therefore, I think they should honor their commitment. So the second point, first was about United States, second was about Afghans themselves and Afghan government, the Taliban government. The third point that I want to make is the role of the regional players, especially the neighbors of Afghanistan. They have a very special role. And I'm grateful to Minister Hamid Al-Bar, who kindly lauded my country, Pakistan's role. Indeed, Pakistan is very, very keen to play a positive role in Afghanistan. We know that if Afghanistan goes down, we all will suffer. The regional countries, Pakistan, China, Iran, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, even Russia and Turkey and the Muslim world as a whole. And therefore, it is important in our view that all regional countries take a regional approach. They make common points with the Taliban government, first and foremost about the commitments that they have made to be honored. Second, very important, humanitarian assistance must be extended, because you don't want a family-like situation. You don't want a situation where there is chaos on the streets of Kabul and other cities and there's problem. So regional countries can actually play a role. What role can they play? First is humanitarian assistance. They should talk about it collectively. Maybe a regional conference should be convened immediately under the OIC auspices or under the auspices of regional countries. We should also think of creating a regional fund for development in Afghanistan. We could also think of extending trade credit facility to Afghanistan. They don't have money. United States has frozen the $9 billion that belong to the people of Afghanistan. Now they can't buy things. Pakistan has opened its ports to Afghanistan. So the goods can go to Afghanistan, but they need money. So some kind of credit facility, trade credit facility could be created. Health is another very important sector where the regional countries could play a role. And finally, the role of Muslim world. I think Muslim world also has a responsibility towards the people of Afghanistan. The people of Afghanistan have suffered from the interventions by first Soviet Union for 20 years and then by United States for 20 years. And people of Afghanistan deserve practical support from the Muslim world. And therefore, I must say that OIC has always been in the forefront of extending this support. But it is time to extend practical support, humanitarian assistance especially, and other economic support. If the OIC can also take lead, then many organizations, like the organization which is organizing this program, the Muslim World Research Center, and University of Malaysia, and there are several in Pakistan, and in Central Asia, and in Iran, and also in China, who would like to come forward and help the people of Afghanistan from a economic catastrophe. I think people of Afghanistan, regardless of the question of recognition of Taliban government, we can do that on the sides by discussing. But at this time, what is most urgent is that the people of Afghanistan must not feel abandoned by the international community, by the regional countries, by the Muslim world. So therefore, we have a role to play, all these four, United States and Europe, Afghans themselves by honoring those commitments, the regional countries by stepping forth the humanitarian assistance and economic packages, and Muslim world by extending not only moral support but also economic support. And I hope that this will help stabilize Afghanistan. And once they have peace in Afghanistan, then of course they can do a much better job of stabilizing Afghanistan and bringing in peace, which is so crucial for not only Pakistan but also for the whole region and indeed for the world. Thank you very much for listening attentively to my submissions. Back to you, Sayyid Arabi.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Judges, thank you very much. You have explained the point and you made good impression on the need for the world community to give assistance to further Afghanistan. We have a line here. I already do so. Raza Ahmad and Saeed and Samir Alawi. We have ample time, so I would call upon Dr. Abdul Razak Ahmad, where is he around here? I just spoke to him. But yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we have a long time. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I'm very thankful for the invitation, and I hope I can make a little contribution to the discussion. I can agree more to what Ambassador Chowdhury has, spoken. I think he has, explained in a very eloquent way the situation and what the role of the international community should play in the rebuilding of Afghanistan. But I want to start with, my observation. My first observation is that many things have been wrong in dealing with Afghanistan. The invasion was wrong. The invasion of Afghanistan was wrong. The strategy that was utilized by liberal democracy in Afghanistan was wrong. There was no focus on national building. There was no institutional building focus. It was more very much security oriented. It was very much about military empowerment, and despite that, 100,000 military establishment with 100,000 forces and with one of the most sophisticated military weapons collapsed in a matter of 7 to 11 days. The way the Western democracy exit also was wrong, and it was disastrous, and it was not properly planned. But we cannot be wrong again this time around. I think we have to do it right this time around, and it's very important for us to bear in mind that if we continue to blame others, we will never find a way forward. And if we fail this time around, we will face another big humanitarian crisis. We're going to have another civil war. We're going to see the emergence of terrorist organization. We're going to see, many other consequences, and especially the image of Islam and Islamophobia is going to be on the rise. If we fail this time around. That's the reason why I think our priority now, and I think our priority of the Muslim country is really to, empower the Afghan people and facilitate the redevelopment and also reconstruction of Afghanistan post Ashraf Ghani's government. I don't think we have a solution unless and until we deal with the Taliban. The international community have no other solution except to deal with the Taliban. And I can tell you that in my interaction with senior diplomats in Qatar and also in Turkey, and with some Western diplomats in Istanbul recently, and also in Iran. I'm currently in Iran. I can tell you that there is a strong commitment to engage with the Taliban government, not with the view of recognizing the Taliban government for the time being, but very much of, assisting the cause of helping the Afghan people, because the observations, the assessment is that humanitarian crisis is looming. And I can tell you it is very, very, worrying, because winter is coming. A lot of humanitarian agencies are no more operating in Afghanistan, and it's very difficult for them to return back and to re-establish the operation in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. The government of Afghanistan is also without cash. Their assets have been freezed. I'm actually very delighted to see the commitment of the Secretary General of the United Nations, who has been, pursuing a lot of initiatives to get the United States of America to release the funding for the purpose of humanitarian assistance. What I mean is that the government of Afghanistan's fund, which has been freezed by the American administration. And we have also seen very positive signs of the role played by some very progressive Muslim countries, especially Qatar. Qatar now is not only, complementing the effort of Pakistan, because everybody knows that Pakistan has always been very, important actor, and have been facilitating and have been, talking and becoming the, communication channel between the Western world and also with the Taliban. But Qatar has also come into the picture and played a very important role. Turkey has also been playing a very important role. Surprisingly, even Iran, Iran a couple of months ago have hosted the Taliban delegations. And as we talk now, Iranian officials are talking to the Taliban officials. And I think it's very encouraging that many Muslim countries now take it, upon themselves to engage with the Taliban, facilitate international humanitarian assistance. Not to mention Tajikistan and also many other Central Asian countries. But what is my concern is the role of OIC. Very little has been said by the OIC Secretary General. I have not seen something significant. OIC initiative seems to be very remote, and I think it's very important for a country like Malaysia, and having a very distinguished former Foreign Minister of Malaysia participating in this conference, I think he can play a very important role to communicate this concern to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that it's high time for Malaysia to initiate an effort at the regional level with Indonesia to probably call a complete and an extraordinary and a special meeting of OIC to really discuss about the situation in Afghanistan. One very important point which I wanted to commend from the speech of Ambassador Chowdhury is this idea of an inclusive government. Many countries are pursuing that concept of an inclusive government. But let me tell you this, that it is not going to be easy what effort has been made by the inclusions of the Hazaras, by the inclusions of people who are pro-Iran, by the inclusions of probably more Tajik and more Uzbek in the Afghan government. But let me tell you that it's also not easy on the part of the Taliban, because they have never had experience of managing inclusiveness before. Number one. Number two is that over the last 20 years, the previous Afghan government had never made any effort to include the representative of the Taliban in many of their initiatives, either at the regional or also at the federal level. So you talk about insisting the Taliban to be inclusive, but over the last 20 years, we have not seen the Afghan government, led by Karzai and also many others, practicing the same by inclusion of the Taliban representative into the government. Another biggest obstacle when it comes to rebuilding, this is what I want to discuss. I think one of the biggest obstacles in the rebuilding of Afghanistan, and I think there is really a consensus among many countries that are trying to facilitate the rebuilding of Afghanistan. And I think many of them are in agreement that what is lacking is institutions. You may have the commitment and the political willingness, but the institution is not there. Why? Because I think the Western democracy, when they invaded Afghanistan, very little was done to really strengthen the institutions, which are supposed to be, very important in order to deliver a better governance. And because of this lack of institutions, I think it's going to be hard for the Taliban government to, embark on effective implementations of their policies and something tangible that people expect from the administration. The other aspects which make it very difficult for these institutions to function and to operate effectively is because of the mass, how do I say this? I think because of the lack of human capital, many of them have left over the last couple of months. The most able, the most talented, the most capable and experienced Afghan bureaucrats have left, and I think this is a very worrying situation. And if the Islamic countries are serious about helping Afghanistan, it's very important for us to focus to help in building back the institutions, and also by allowing some of our best brain to actually help the Afghan, government, the Taliban government, in terms of building the institutions. I think this is something which they really require. It's also probably important for a country like Malaysia or Indonesia to come together, and I hope Tan Sri Syed Hamid Albad could speak to the Malaysian Prime Minister on the need for a Prime Minister Special Envoy in Afghanistan, for example, as a commitment to Malaysia's, initiative to help rebuild Afghanistan again. And I think they have to work together with, Pakistan, and they have to work also together with many other countries that are stakeholders to these issues. I'm actually quite impressed with, my meeting with Iranian government have actually impressed me a lot. I can tell you that they have done a lot. Ambassador Aziz, despite I know your government has been overburdened by more than 3 million, 4 million Afghan refugees. The same is also happening in Iran. And Iran has always been very welcoming and allowing them to study in their universities, allowing them to use their healthcare system, allowing them to use their, schools to help ensure that these people could build a future, for themselves. So I think it's important for Malaysia to explore the opportunity to work not only with Pakistan but also with, Iran, for that matter, and Qatar. And I think this is something which we seriously need to consider. In my interaction with Iranian officials, I can tell you that they are very serious in, engaging with the Taliban government, and I can also tell you that they are, committed to the cause of, ensuring that stable Afghan is foreseeable in the next 1 or 2 years. My last point is when it comes to democracy. My Western friends in the Western think tank have been, talking about this language democracy. As Ambassador Chowdhury made it very clear that now we should not be talking about democracy with the Taliban. Democracy is probably not the way forward for the Taliban government. And anyway, we have seen the trend globally of how democracy has failed. There have been so many coups happening, in Myanmar, in Guinea, in Mali, in Chad, so many other places. And as we are talking now, in Sudan, there was a failed coup this morning. And I think this should, tell us that the democracy is probably not the way forward, but our focus now is not about institutionalizing democracy. Our focus now is not about recognizing the Taliban. Our focus now is really about the looming humanitarian crisis. And I hope that we could use our whatever network that we have, whatever resources that we have, whatever connections that we have, to communicate this concern globally to our friends, our governments, and our civil society. I'm very happy to say that the Global Peace Mission has already sent a fact-finding mission with the help of friends in Pakistan to understand what's going on in Kabul. And I hope they could enter Kabul soon. And quite a number of other humanitarian agencies have also started talking to governments in the region and asking them to facilitate their entry to Kabul. Thank you very much, Professor Said Arabi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raza, for your insight into the problem faced by the people of Afghanistan. Thank you very much. Can we go now to the second discussion? Mr. Shan Said, Chief Economist. I can't see her. Are you there, please?
Can I start?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. Honorable Madam High Commissioner, Madam Amna, Honorable Chancellor Hamid Albar. I know him for the last 8 years now, and he is perhaps one of the most erudite gentlemen I have come across in Malaysia. I have friend Samir Alawi from Al Jazeera. I have been featured on so many times on Al Jazeera because of Samir. And all the organizers, thank you very much for organizing this event. It is very timely, and I think it is very relevant for this part of the world. So what I have written down in my short notes, Afghanistan, what's next? So I'll be touching upon policies, economic outlook, social security, and nutshell. I'm very grateful to Chancellor Hamid Albar, who has appreciated the role Pakistan has played in this whole situation. And it is all about policy, what the countries are pursuing. And once you take the wrong policy, you have to suffer. And once you take the right policy decision, you benefit from this. And I am very confident and I'm very happy to say Pakistan, China, Russia, Iran, they have played a very mature role. I give full credit to Prime Minister Imran Khan, General Bajwa, and our establishment of Pakistan, who have done all their best to bring peace and stability and to bring all factions and stakeholders of Afghanistan together so that peace prevails. I also like to mention that, at times when these challenging times, you have the wrong cards and the right cards. Pakistan, Russia, China have played the right cards at this moment. And the wrong cards have been played by US and India. And if you see the recent statement of Robert Gates, the ex-defense secretary, he has come down very heavily on Biden administration. And if you pick up Politico and Foreign Affairs magazine, there have been articles featured in July where they have criticized the US role in Afghanistan. My second point is all about economic outlook. Countries progress because they have economic stability. If you see Afghanistan, it's a landlocked country, but if you see Afghanistan, it has got huge deposits of gold, copper, lithium, and natural gas. In the next 5 to 10 years, electric vehicles become the norm. You won't find oil and gas cars flying around in the roads globally. So I think what China has done, and we have to appreciate China's role. China has provided $31 million to Afghanistan government because $9.5 billion have been frozen by the US government. So Afghanistan government has been in a very catch-22 situation, and they have been hit economically very, very hard. Obviously, when your economic situation is good, what China has done, they have spoken to the Afghanistan government that they are willing to help the Afghanistan government in exploring these natural resources. And once Afghanistan can stand on its own feet, that's where the prosperity and the social integration, and what Tansari Hamid Albert mentioned, that when you talk about inclusive government, you have to go down to the definition. Democracy is a word very favored in the West, but democracy cannot be applied in every country. Every country has got different dynamics and different nomenclatures of democracy. So Western government, they think democracy can be applied. That is a wrong analogy, I would say. So I think with improved economic conditions, Afghanistan government can uplift the masses and they can build Afghanistan. And Chinese government have also offered the Afghanistan government that they can invest in infrastructure. And as you know, infrastructure has direct correlation with GDP growth. One of my Nobel laureate professors, Robert Fogel, wrote a paper in 1964, and the late Robert Fogel mentioned about how infrastructure investment can play a positive role. So he studied about Japanese railroad system called Shinkansen, an American railroad system, and he came up with this analysis that infrastructure investment has direct correlation with GDP growth. The next point is security. In the recent interview with CNN, Prime Minister Imran Khan has showed his concerns very openly that we need to bring peace and stability in Afghanistan. And as Tansari Hamid Albert mentioned, the start just seeing his idea that we have to give them a chance. Don't make a right call right now that you know Afghanistan is going to fail. And what Mr. Azaz Chaudhry mentioned, that there could be a chaos if we don't give peace a chance, if we don't provide stability a chance. So once we have failure, we could have global polarization of Afghanistan. We can have regional peace and stability coming under a huge question mark. And who is going to suffer? The nearest neighbor, Pakistan. Pakistan has suffered the economic cost $150 billion. 80,000 people have lost their lives. Our armed forces have laid down their lives in protecting Pakistan. So Pakistan is the main player in this whole equation, which has suffered a lot. The nutshell, I think humanitarian assistance, Pakistan has recently sent 2 planes of humanitarian assistance to Kabul. We need to have an engagement strategy. All the international players, Pakistan, China, the Western government, they have to recognize and give peace a chance. Give Afghanistan government, the Taliban government a chance so that they can move forward. And what I can say about Afghanistan people as such, they're very educated. And we need to invest in female education. And I have been saying not only for Pakistan, but many other countries, female education has direct correlation with GDP. Look at Vietnam, because I'm living in Malaysia for the last 10 years and I was invited by PNB in 2019. And I gave this example of Vietnam. In 1990, the poverty level in Vietnam was 62%. After 31 years, the poverty level in Vietnam is less than 5%. So what they have done, they have invested heavily in female education. Look at South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, Qatar, UAE, Poland. What they have done, they have invested heavily in female education. And my last point, Pakistan is all for to promote regional trade, transit infrastructure, because Afghanistan is a landlocked country. Whatever goes to Afghanistan comes to Pakistan first. We want to support energy transmission line, business linkages, people-to-people contact, and above all, we want peace and stability in Afghanistan so that everybody, all place, they benefit from the stability of Afghanistan. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Sashan Said. Says so many important points we should recognize. I'm now going to invite Samer Alawi, well-known journalist from Al Jazeera. Yeah, he has covered, I think he's covered Malaysia, but he has also covered Afghanistan, if I am not mistaken. So he will give an insight into the news coverage, how the news organization cover Afghanistan. May I invite Samer Alawi, please?
Yes, thank you very much. I was covering Afghanistan for almost 2 decades. I studied in Pakistan. When I was in Pakistan, I was in touch with the government, with Afghanistan issue. Then when I was with Al Jazeera, I went to Afghanistan since 2005 until 2012. The case of Afghanistan is a case of the Muslim world since 2-3 decades. And still, it will continue for another 1 or 2 decades, engaging the whole Muslim countries, the whole Muslim world. Actually, it is why this is the importance of Afghanistan, because 2 reasons. The conflict between the superpowers is on 2 things. The first one is strategic location. The other one is the natural resources. And natural resources and strategic location is there in Afghanistan. Now, after in the time of the invade of the Western countries, the Western invasion of Afghanistan for the last 2 decades, the surrounding countries, they were worried about if the situation in Afghanistan remained there and volatile, and the American forces are there, they will be suffer a lot from the Western powers who are stationed in Afghanistan. After the withdrawal of the American forces and the NATO forces from Afghanistan, all the countries surrounding Afghanistan, they are feeling that it is the opportunity now for the stability. It's the opportunity now for the economic engagement, involvement in Afghanistan. There's no doubt that international and foreign interference in Afghanistan makes that country suffer a lot. But in this time, after the withdrawal of 2 superpowers from Afghanistan, they suffered a lot. Now everybody feels that it is not a time to conflict in Afghanistan. It's time to understand Afghanistan and to find the opportunity, to find the way that we can cooperate and build or in a positive involvement in Afghanistan. There is no time for another war in Afghanistan, whether by the foreign interference or by civil war inside Afghanistan. Everybody will suffer. And a rational thinking now is how to build Afghanistan and how to make peace in Afghanistan. Let us say that this government of Taliban now, it is a temporary government, political government, or whatever it is. People are criticizing the Taliban. But let us say that when the new government established, let us say that when the new government established after the 11th September, that Hamid Karzai government, it was a temporary government. It took 2 years as a temporary government. It was temporary government they call it transitional government, then a temporary government for 2 years. After 2 years, there were an elections and a stable government, what you call stable government, came to power. I think Taliban now needs time, also needs 2 years at least to make their minds and with their agenda. It's not we surprised that by the fall of the Ashraf Ghani's government, even Taliban themselves they were suffered. When we they were surprised, and they have to make up their own government. It was not expected from the beginning, from the first day, that what they call it inclusive government. That if I get the victory and there was a vacuum, I'm not struggling for 20 years to bring that man who was accused of corruption inside the former government to be a leader in new government. It's not expected. Nobody can say that. Like that. It's not possible that for anybody that somebody will be expecting Taliban to bring the former government to be representative of new government. It was not possible for. It was not expected that somebody will expect that new government or recall the members of the former government to be participating in the new government. But also, we are concerned about the future of Afghanistan. And we have the right to be concerned because this country has been in war for almost 4 decades. So they are not winning the government by elections. And it's not like that United States or Britain or anybody who won the election, who win the election, can form the government. We are not speaking about Democrats or Republicans who win elections. It is a country, fragilized country, and we want stability. When we want stability, we want to help them. We want to see them that what you call it inclusive. Yes, inclusive, but in the inclusive not according to our wishes. It should be according to the traditions of Afghanistan. We have to understand their own traditions, their own. We cannot speak to form of government like whatever we have in the democratic countries, but they have their own traditions. We can expect them to call Jirga, and from the Jirga they can start. It has happened like that. The Bonn Agreement, December 2001, brought Hamid Karzai's government and brought that system. And that it has been made outside of Afghanistan. It has been made in Bonn, in Germany. It's not in Kabul. But this government made in Kabul and indigenous Bonn government, we need to give those people who are in power there in Afghanistan support and guidance. In the matter of support, we should not isolate them like the same thing that happened after the USSR collapse and left Afghanistan, when the international community left Afghanistan alone, and that after that we discovered that everybody was suffered because we have isolated Afghanistan, and everybody was trying to fill that vacuum which was left from the local people. I mean, Najib's government, Najibullah government, and the USSR. Everybody was trying to fill the vacuum. We entered in a civil war. We don't want to repeat that situation after the withdrawal of the American forces, and the risk is there. We don't want to see Afghanistan people are suffering more and more. We want to see Afghanistan a developing country like any other country in the world, and it has a lot of tremendous opportunities. that can make Afghanistan good, stable, and rich country. The neighboring countries, they want Afghanistan stable because not only for self benefits of these countries, also for they don't want headache that comes from Afghanistan again, because whenever there is a fire in Afghanistan, it will touch all those neighboring countries. Of course, the situation now, we can predict the situation, what's going on, what will be going on after 6 months. But we can play our role to build Afghanistan and to stop any kind of violence can be erupted. There was, since 3-4 days, we watched that several attacks happened in Jalalabad, in Kabul, and it is a warning for everybody that this can be turned to another civil war. We have isolating or punishing Taliban or Afghanistan again. It means that we are allowing the violence to come back to Afghanistan. So we have to, everybody has to play a very constructive role to build Afghanistan, and also we benefit from Afghanistan. If the Chinese are looking to Afghanistan to for the investment there, for the construction there, why the Muslim countries not to play the same role? But unfortunately, we are still watching and waiting the West to say their word. After the United States recognize, if the United States recognize the Taliban government from the first day, I believe that at least 40-50 countries will follow. But as far European Union, United States, United Nations reluctant to say their word, and they put some conditions to recognize the government of Afghanistan, the Muslim countries are following that. So we have to be proactive. We have to have our new initiative. If we are not able to recognize that Afghanistan and to make our embassies and ambassadors in Afghanistan, we can play another role. We can, every country can appoint an envoy to Afghanistan, and if that envoy can contact with all partners, with all parties, whether inside or outside Afghanistan, and try to help whether it was humanitarian help or business or economic or political involvement in Afghanistan to reconstruct Afghanistan and make it stable again. I think up to here is enough. I can hand over the mic to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Avi, your comments on the situation in Afghanistan. Quick to the program. Today's discussions and your remarks. I'm supposed to invite the Ambassador IPRI Muhammad Chaudhry to respond to the remarks, in response to the points by the discussion. So, Ambassador IPRI Muhammad Chaudhry, can I invite you and give your reaction to comments by the discussion?
Thank you. I must say that it was a very learned discussion, and I enjoyed the points that were raised, some additional new points also by Mr. Abdul Razak and Mr. Sham Saeed and Mr. Samir Alawi. Let me reflect on a couple of them. Mr. Abdul Razak, I think he cannot be more correct when he says that many wrongs were made in the last 40 years in Afghanistan, and he's about time that we right those wrongs, we don't make another wrong, because the people of Afghanistan have suffered enough. He also talked about in the air as to what is by inclusive government. And he rightly identified that it would not, can you, Mr. Bakhtiar, can you mute it? Bakhtiar Hussain, can you mute it, please? Somebody has joined in and he is not muting it. So, I think Mr. Razak is right when he says that it will not be easy. Consider it from the Taliban's viewpoint also. And the right example was given. Did Ashraf Ghani government, for example, include the Taliban? So how would it be on Taliban to include other elements? But at the same time, I think the Taliban did make this commitment that they would like to accommodate others and carry them along. And I feel that no one in the world should dictate to the Taliban as to what kind of inclusive government should it be. They should decide it themselves. But a message and a friendly advice can always be given. That you should be able to carry others along, because Afghanistan historically has been run in a decentralized fashion. And there has been mostly a titular government in Kabul. So if they carry others along and give them some kind of power sharing, which I think they are beginning to do, it will bring more stability to the Taliban government and to Afghanistan. But if they don't do that, I am afraid there will be 20 Panjshir-like situations. There will be militias and the fighting will begin all. And that is the reason. The advice which is going to them is that it is you who should decide. But carry others along. Mr. Razak also discussed several obstacles for rebuilding Afghanistan. And one very pertinent point that he made is the brain drain. The people who had the experience of running the government departments are leaving. Some have left, others are waiting for opportunity to leave. And that could be disastrous and make country destabilized. So I think it's a very important point, and this should be one of the recommendations of this particular webinar, that this particular aspect needs to be addressed by the regional countries as well as by the Muslim countries. He also spoke of the Iranian experience of refugees. I would tell him that it is the same in case of Pakistan, 3 million refugees for 40 years. But even in the previous Afghan government, anybody had studied in Pakistan, had lived in Pakistan, had gotten his education in Pakistan. So Pakistan is proud that we were able to make this contribution. But it's now, at the end of the day, Afghans have to realize that whatever they gain from neighbors has to be now applied inside Afghanistan. I fully agree with him that focus of all these points, focus at this time should be on the looming humanitarian crisis, because that should be on top of the agenda for international community, from the Muslim world, and for the region. Mr. Sham Saeed spoke about the political dimensions, the economic dimensions, and the security dimensions of the crisis in Afghanistan. I can endorse nearly all the points that he made. I think his view was that it is time that every country help Afghanistan stabilize. Stability is the topmost agenda. If you start scoring points, like sending some proxies. Pakistan had a complaint from India that India was using Afghan soil against Pakistan. So I think there should be no proxies in Afghanistan. Every country should give a commitment that no more proxies, no more favors. We should allow Afghans to run their country, and we should facilitate stability. If there is no stability, frankly, there is no democracy, there is no economic livelihood, there is nothing. So therefore, I think top priority should be that. Mr. Samir Alawi is speaking from his very rich experience, personal experience of having lived in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the region. I think he made some very, very important points, and I cannot agree more with him that that all regional countries now feel by consensus that this is the time to give an opportunity of peace in Afghanistan. It is a rare coincidence that Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, Central Asia, everybody wants to see peace in Afghanistan. So I think it is important that we not lose this opportunity. So this was a very good point that Mr. Alawi made. He rightly said that there's no time for another war. We cannot afford it. And he also mentioned that Taliban also need time. You can't expect them to make wonders in just a couple of weeks or months, and therefore they need time. And the one suggestion was very intriguing that he made, and it certainly caught my special attention. He said, pending the question of recognition of Afghan government, all countries, concerned countries, will appoint special envoys to deal with the situation there, especially the humanitarian assistance and even political advice and other matters. I think this was a very practical suggestion made by him. And finally, I would like to thank once again the Muslim World Center and also our own High Commissioner, Pakistan High Commissioner to Malaysia, Ambassador Amna Baloch, for having facilitated my participation into this and benefiting from the views of so many learned people like Hamid Al-Bar and Mr. Arabi. So thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Sister, thank you so much for the rounding up comments. Aziz.
Sister.
Look forward to getting your
Sister.
picture, your printer. Can I now call upon Sansri on the side of Alpha, the closing remarks?
Hamid Alba.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
No.
because the person asked.
No sound. No sound.
Can you unmute?
No sound.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Anyway, thank you very much. I think actually I was under the impression after such an able summing up of those remarks made by my colleague and friend, Excellency Ambassador Aizat Ahmad Chowdhury, that I don't have to say anything anymore. But anyway, since Arab said let me say that I think in this closing remark, I would like to mention specific names for the contribution to the success of this webinar. I think when I was approached, I said it's going to be very difficult. But Ishara was so confident that he will get the assistance of our Amna Baluchi, Excellency, the Pakistan High Commission, and I'd like to thank her very much for making it possible, and more importantly, for making Ambassador Chowdhury to take part in this webinar. And I think our moderator, Professor Emeritus at Arabi,
For dua,
as always, have done a wonderful job. I always have problem with moderators. Sometimes moderators like to speak more than the participants. But Arabi, true to his professional conduct as a good moderator, he just allowed the discussion to go on with very little comment. And I also like to thank Professor Ruslan, who has always been
At the end,
he's always been forthcoming as a professor in the Department of Islamic History and Civilization, and for agreeing to collaborate in organizing this today's webinar. So if I take a little bit of time, I hope you don't mind, because I have got all my notes in the phone. So my phone sometimes it switches off. And I think thank you for his participation and for his support. And Mr. Shan Say, as usual, my good friend, I always read his article. Sometimes he forced me to read his article. He always writes beautiful articles on the issues of his favorite issue. And today, I think definitely he touches on those favorite issues of his economic, politics, and security. And I think all, as commented by Mr. Chaudhary, all are in line with what actually we need to do. So then we have Mr. Abduraza. I'm not very familiar with Dr. Abduraza Ahmad, but he looks very familiar to me. But I think he has given us a very insightful account of the various issues and the things that we need to do. And I think listening to Mr. Chaudhary, listening to Shan Zaid, and listening to Dr. Raza and Professor Ruslan, I think there is one thing that we must realize, and all of us, I think, have consensus. At present, there is an urgent need for us to give Afghanistan a chance. But this need will not come to fruition unless we have leadership. We need leadership. In this particular case, I feel that being Pakistan and Iran can play the leadership role in order to bring not only the regional players, the major powers to look at Afghanistan. After all, Rome is not built within the day. And we must give them a chance. And they must not do anything. I think all the experiments of introducing Western democracy has failed. They tried to do that in Iraq, it has failed. They tried to do that in Libya, it has failed. They take part in all parts of the world. I think the major powers, they have failed. So I think maybe now it is time, I think, for us to see that in maybe Pakistan and Iraq, Qatar and Iran can actually get OIC to be concerned, because it's a country issue, and it is important for them to be concerned. So I'm looking forward. If Pakistan, Qatar, Iran, and other neighboring countries show their positive interest, then it will invite. I think it will force the other non-Muslim and big powers to say, yes, these countries who know Afghanistan very well. I mean, Afghanistan is not a new country. It's a country that has got ancient history. It's not an easy country. And I think the popular saying that all the big powers of the world, Afghanistan has been the graveyards of dynasties and empires. And it's quite true. It shows the resilience and the toughness of the Afghan. And I like what Mr. Chaudhary said. Ultimately, you must allow the Afghanistan to take that responsibility and never shape democracy in your own mold. You must allow democracy to take its own shape in order for. So I want to see soon, I think, I hope that all the suggestions, recommendations are very good, and we must now follow up to what we have suggested. All the suggestions that we have, we must do, we must take up initiative to continue to develop the various things that we want to do. The immediate one is humanitarian. The second immediate one is We must influence the US to unfreeze the 9 billion, and then we must get the EU to we only talk about the number of soldiers and the number of death of those interveners. But we do not talk about the destruction and the loss of life of the Afghans. They have got a responsibility. And I think all of you have suggested that. So I think we need to look at various ways of public well-being and welfare, the service system, food, medical health, transport, education, and I hope OIC actually, I do hope Pakistan and Iran should call an emergency meeting of OIC and for them to draw up plans how we can be involved in it. I think the keywords that Alawi mentioned, all of you mentioned, the keyword is stability. Malaysia, when we achieve independence, we say that we are going to sacrifice some of this Western freedom, liberal democracy. We want to have our own mold of democracy, where we take into account the culture, the conventions of our own. And I think they have got a different system in Afghanistan. We must recognize that. And I hope that there will be special initiative to continue to maintain proper management. And don't worry about, I think the fact that we can always get updated on inclusiveness, but don't expect everybody to be included. You must, if you study the history of Islam, first you must bring the para Sahaba. Those people who understand you, who are closest to you. Then you bring your friend. Then you bring your associates. But each one of us got a role to play. And I think before I close up, I think all of you, I think each and every one of you, Alawi, Raza, Excellency Chowdhury, Sean, Said, and all of you have contributed. And I think this is one of the best seminar post the post-Taliban, or you want to say post 21st August takeover of the government by the new regime. So, and I think we made the right decision to hold this webinar, and I do hope that after this, maybe the organizers can draw up, and I think here Dr. Raza, Alawi, Sean Sai, and under the guidance of Ambassador Chowdhury, maybe we can draft some brief papers for us to make recommendations to the OIC and to see that how they could play a role, so that we will see, we want to see success. And the success of Afghanistan is our success. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, or if there are other ladies who are following this, let us wish and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah give us guidance. May Allah give us protection. May Allah show us the way so that Afghanistan is not going to be a failure. And I think with all of you giving us the best and the most relevant and up-to-date information, and not only information, but the way forward, I'm sure we can contribute constructively, productively to the future of Afghanistan. And let us ask that all Muslim countries in the OIC should establish link and contact with them rather than waiting for some indication. Let us take what, and I think here Pakistan and Iran maybe can play the role that we hope that can bring everyone together. So thank you for your participation. Thank you for your contribution. And I think I have learned a lot, and I have enjoyed your participation, your scholastic and intellectual input, and let us now see what further we can contribute towards understanding Afghanistan and its future. Thank you very much. So all the best. Wabillahi taufiq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri, for your summary, and at the same time, the concrete suggestion, discussion with Mr. Aziz, with you, draft like a memo or something taken by OIC, urging Pakistan or Iran and other Muslim countries
Because
How you think we will check it?
yeah,
discuss on the future development. So my
because
duty as a
this is
moderator
right.
ends now at 5:15,
So
and
we
I will
should
hand
not
over
it will
I have to stop.
this seminar to the organizer,
You will let me hear.
Professor Sharaf Singh, who will also give a vote of thanks for his. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, now I hand over to Dr. Sharaf Singh, please.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, please.
Okay, okay. Prof. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will not speak about any content or the deliberation, but I would like to thanks to all of you who have presented valuable speeches, opinions, views, recommendation, including our honorable keynote speaker, our chair of the event, moderator, and other discussants. And I also would like to give thanks to all the participants who have participated to this event from around the world, not from only Malaysia. I have seen some known people who participate from also from the UK and other countries. I would like to just inform you what we will do on the topic. Inshallah, I can ensure you, we will follow up which are suggested by Ambassador Ijaz, and also made conclusion with the particular recommendation made by Tansiri Said Hamid Albar. We hope we can arrange informal discussion to make a recommendation and report to submit to concerned parties, and we also arrange some series of discussion, and also we lead some continuous study, survey, and research on Afghanistan. I would like to inform you, we are going to arrange another webinar on this topic of the role of Oic communities. Inshallah, it will be held next month. So I would like to conclude my vote of thanks to express our gratitude for contributing to the webinar, and also for your giving valuable time and attention. I would like also request all of you to make dua as a Muslim for future of Afghanistan, also for them who are working to lead betterment, well-being for the people of Afghanistan. We believe if we can see a stable, peaceful and Afghanistan, that Afghanistan will also help for whole Muslim world. From the point of view of Muslim world, we are expecting to see a strong traditional Afghanistan. That Afghanistan played important role in the history. In future, with the support of neighboring countries such as Pakistan, Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey and other OIC countries, Afghanistan will be emerged in a very stable, peaceful country to lead not only for its people, not only for regional development, it will work for whole Muslim world. That is our humble expectation. So I would like to finish my vote of thanks with this opinion. Thank you to all. Now I would like to request Dr. Professor Ruslan to make a formal dua. Dr. Ruslan.
اللهم ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين. امين. اللهم ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
Thank you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Can you take a picture? Okay. Can you end the program?
Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. We can say Alhamdulillah. Shukran. Thank you very much. Welcome.